Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the special council meeting on October 28th, 2024. Individuals interested in participating in today's meeting were eligible to register online using the delegation registration form at www.kitchener.ca/delegation or via email at delegation@kitchener.ca. Any written comments received prior to the commencement of today's meeting have been circulated to members of council prior to the meeting and will form part of the public record. Today's meeting live stream and all archive videos are available at www.kitchener.ca/watchnow. Before we begin this afternoon's meeting, I'd like to acknowledge that today we gather on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We recognize our responsibility to serve as stewards for the land and honor the original caretakers that came before us. Our community is enriched by the enduring knowledge and deep-rooted traditions of the diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit in Kitchener today. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? There being none, and there being no delegations, I won't read the delegation piece, and we'll go, and there also is no mayoral business and updates, so we'll go right to item number 5, the notice of motion from Councillor Ioannidis. Councillor Ioannidis, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic. I will read out the motion. Whereas on October 5th, 2020, City of Kitchener Council approved the use of automated speed enforcement, ASA, on municipal streets in accordance with OREG 398/19 under the Highway Traffic Act. And whereas a formal agreement between the Regional Municipality of Waterloo and the Corporation of the City of Kitchener has not yet been negotiated between the parties to outline the installation, administration, enforcement, and operation of the automated speed enforcement program on city roads, and whereas the Regional Municipality of Waterloo currently enforces ASE using the Provincial Offences Act, POA, which sets fines in accordance with the Highway Traffic Act, sections 128, brackets 14, and whereas in 2022, the province of Ontario enacted the Ontario Regulation 355/2022, which facilitates the processing of administrative penalties for contraventions detected using the camera systems, and whereas the region has changed their model of enforcement and will be moving to an administrative penalty, AMP, in brackets, system in accordance with the OREG 355/2022, and whereas the fines in OREG 355/2022 are an approximate doubling of fine amounts set out in section 128 brackets 14 of the Highway Traffic Act, and this increase causes concerns for the City of Kitchener. And whereas the City approved in May 2024 through Vision Zero the implementation of 3 additional ASEs on local roads under the jurisdiction of the municipality, therefore be it resolved that the City of Kitchener pause future installations of additional ASEs on roads under the jurisdiction of the City of Kitchener beyond any locations already approved, unless such time as Kitchener Council has approved a memorandum of understanding with the region of Waterloo that outlines revenue sharing and the ability for the City of Kitchener to amend operating times of ASE cameras, should they choose to do so at any time on Kitchener City roads, and therefore be finally resolved that the City of Kitchener Council requests that the Ontario Provincial Government amend Ontario Regulation 355/2022 to reduce the set fines to a level that is similar to the fine set out in the Highway Traffic Act, section 128 in brackets 14.
Thank you, Councillor Ioannidis. I'm sorry, was there a seconder for your motion? Councillor Davey, thank you. Councillor Michaud.
Yes, I just have a question in this motion with regards to not having any, to pausing any traffic lights, sorry, the ASEs at all on all city streets until this these issues get resolved. And I'm wondering if we cannot work to resolve them and continue on the trajectory of getting TSCs onto the city streets, especially in school zones.
Is that a question for Councillor Ioannidis, I
Yes.
guess? Okay, Councillor Ioannidis.
To be quite frank, I don't think we're able to get to that point, to be honest.
Are staff in conversation with regional staff with regards to the sharing of revenue and the other issues that are outlined in this motion?
Okay, I'll let Mr. Cronkite respond to that. Mr. Cronkite?
Yes, through the mayor, we are actively engaged with the Regional Waterloo staff regarding a memorandum of understanding. However, we haven't started the discussion regarding the sharing of revenue or what the revenue model looks like yet.
So I'd like to amend that piece that we continue with discussions, that staff continue with discussions with the regional staff, and we continue to go on as planned where these ASCs will be located on city streets in school zones, and we continue the discussions as opposed to stopping this.
Okay.
Okay, what is it? Well, it could be amendment.
Okay, let me reflect on that for a moment. So to be clear, the region will be in a position where they can continue to proceed in school zones on regional roads. The motion that's in front of us is looking to pause the current positions as well as so the current ones on city streets as well as any of the ones that were slated to happen in 2024 until there's an agreement in place. So I do think that it would be in opposition to the existing motion. So we would have to vote the existing one down, and so I'm happy to deal with that one separate, that paragraph separately. And then if that doesn't succeed, then we can deal with your motion, Councillor Michaud.
So just so I'm clear, we're going to vote on the motion as it stands?
So we'll deal with it as it stands. You've identified that you would like to see an alternate motion proposed. If that original motion is not successful, then we'll come to you for your motion. So I'll deal with that paragraph separately.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
So I just the reason I'm doing this, and I do appreciate Councillor Ioannidis' motion that he brought forward, but the biggest complaint I get in Ward 4, particularly in the Dune South area, is the speed that cars are traveling, and it's always in school zones. So to not act on this and not accept a pause, so to be sure that we can continue on this trajectory of getting these ASCs in school zones and in more than just the few that are mentioned. That's why I'm putting this through. Thank you.
Okay, and maybe just before we continue, I'm just going to ask staff to list the locations on city streets where they currently are or were proposed to be in 2024. And Mr. Chapman, is that what you wanted to answer, or did you want to say something else?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Cronkite can respond to that, but it might also be helpful for him to outline the timeline. It's my understanding that the 3 locations approved in 2024 will not be implemented until 2025, and then the next round will be many months after that. And so I do believe that there are a number of months before any new installations would happen for these negotiations to continue. So I don't know that it materially changes the timeline. It just sends a signal to say that no further locations would progress until the agreement has been negotiated. But Mr. Cronkite can clarify the timelines that the region is working under.
Yeah, and if you can also list the Kitchener locations, Mr. Cronkite. Oh, go ahead.
Certainly. So through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of the timeline, the region is working on the 2024 locations now, and so they're working through that process. And they are also working on the current locations that were identified by this council back in February or March. So again, they're working on those now with the installation intended to be late 2024, early 2025, and then they would be looking at an additional rollout thereafter. In terms of the locations that we have currently, we have Franklin Avenue Public School, so Franklin Avenue, West Heights Public School, so directly on West Heights Drive. Laurentian Hills Public School is in the city of Kitchener, but it's on a regional road. It's on Westmount Road. And Sand Hills Public School, which is on Victoria Street, also regionally operated. In terms of this next phase, the phase the region is working on now, the ones that would be impacted that are municipal jurisdiction are Lackner Woods Public School, so that would be on Zeller Drive, Westmount Public School, which would be on Glasgow Road, and St. Anne's Catholic School, which would be on East Avenue.
So sorry, just go through the city road ones, and so we're all very clear. No,
Yeah, through the mayor, to repeat, it's Franklin Avenue Public School
okay, so Ward 2,
and West Heights Public School.
Ward 7, and then the new ones?
The new ones would be Lackner Woods Public School, Zeller Drive,
Okay, Ward 2,
Westmount Public School, Glasgow Road,
which I think is Ward 8, okay,
and East Ave, St. Anne's Catholic School.
and that's Ward 10. Okay, thank you. Councillor Michaud, I'll come back to you because you were timed out. Councillor Schneider.
Yes, I think clerks have been provided for amendment added to this. Just in regards to having staff look into the possibility of the city running our own ASC program. So that's,
Oh, sorry,
yeah.
that's, sorry, I can, okay, gotcha, there we go. And to be clear, when you're asking that, are you asking that the city look at either them running it directly or through a third-party partner as an option?
I would leave that up to staff to.
Probably to look at both of them.
Best practices on that.
Yeah, and I'm seeing staff nod that they would look at both of them as part of that. Okay, and do you have a seconder for your amendment? Councillor Singh, thank you. Okay, so I will come back to that. Hold on, I gotta figure out now. I always mess up. Okay, perfect, thank you. Next up, I have Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. I was actually hoping to possibly go in the opposite direction to Councillor Michaud with respect to the existing installations. I just wanted to ask staff first, if council were inclined to roll back, like say the Franklin Street one, my understanding is they wouldn't have to actually physically remove anything because the camera rotates, so it could be just not actively monitored until such time as we look at the suggestion from Councillor Schneider. Is that correct?
Mr. Cronkite?
Sure, through the mayor, that's correct. Even in a permanent installation, which is what the region is moving towards, we'd still have the ability to essentially turn the camera off.
Okay, that's helpful. So I too sent a couple amendments to clerks. I believe one of them was sort of already highlighted in the previous thing, but if we could bring those up as well, I'd like those voted on.
Okay, do you want to speak to your amendments?
Yeah, certainly. So it's just, again, beyond those already approved, I don't want to go ahead since the doubling of fines with the ones that were already approved. And to, actually don't see it in here, but also to pause the existing installations as well was the other one of my amendments, which I don't see here, I don't think.
Current and future installations?
Yes,
Okay. Thank you.
and I'll have comment at the appropriate time.
And do you have a seconder for your amendment? Councillor Deneau, thank you. Okay. Next in the queue would be Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my apologies for being late to the meeting. Did want to speak to the main motion if I can, or are we too far into the amendments to speak to the main motion?
I'll actually allow you to speak to all of them at the same time, but you're not going to get a second or third time. Try at it.
I won't need one. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to just agree with Councillor Ioannidis's motion in terms of ensuring that the conversation around the hoping to split revenue would happen ahead of time. I think that if we wait until after these go in, we'll have a harder time having that conversation. So I think it will be really important to have ahead of time. As I think of the camera going in on Glasgow Street, which where many people in the neighborhood have asked to have traffic slowed down on Glasgow Street. It's a good thing. What I do think about though is what might happen in terms of needing to do traffic calming on surrounding streets like Dunbar, Avondale, Earl. With the new stoplight going in at Westmount and Union Boulevard, people might cut across there, go up Union, across Westmount, and then also affect the other end of Union Boulevard as well as Aberdeen Road to get back over to Glasgow Street. I hope that that doesn't happen, but we do know that human behavior says that you will sometimes take the path of I won't call it least resistance, but perhaps people will see that as a way to get through the neighborhood, and I am very concerned about the safety and therefore the speed of that going through that neighborhood. So I think we need to have this conversation ahead of these kind of going through, because this is where we have the opportunity to have these conversations and to have some leverage with the region. I am in favor of the ASEs. I don't want to make it sound like I am not at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Councillors Michaud and Davey, I have you next in the queue, but you've already spoken once, so I'm going to go to Councillors Deneau and Singh first, and then come back to you guys after that. Councillor Deneau.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I make a comment on the motions?
Yep.
Okay. So I am in support of Councillor Ioannidis, Councillor Schneider, and Councillor Davies' motions and the amendments. When I look at this, I don't believe the school zones are the most dangerous spots on our roads and across our city. Earlier this year, WRPS Sergeant Scott Griffiths mentioned half of collisions are occurring at intersections. In 2018, I couldn't find relevant data since that, but the top 10 pedestrian collision areas, three of the top 10 in the region. One was at Kingsway and Wilson, where 3 people were hit last year. Another one was at Fairway and Fairview Park Mall, where there was a collision in August of this year, and another one was Westmount and Victoria, all intersections, not school zones, intersections. Scott Griffiths Sergeant Griffiths also mentioned that improvements could be at these intersections, narrowing the streets, improved timing of controls at those intersections. These are all mechanisms the region has the ability to control, and I think we're spending too much time on issues that aren't really there. We have other issues. We know people are getting hit on our busy roads, but we're not seeing anybody really address that from the region. We know that the roundabouts, in particular along Iron Needles, have been a concern, and the ones around the high schools have been a concern for many, many years. What have they done? In December of 2022, the region, after somebody was hit, may pilot raised crosswalks or flashing beacons at roundabouts after several pedestrians were hit. And so when I look at all this information, the issue is not in school zones, it's not in community safety zones, it's in intersections of busy roads. And so I think we need to fix that problem first before we start fixing problems that I don't believe are really there at this point in time. So if we're really, really concerned about pedestrian safety, and I know we are, and I know the city is, and I believe the region as well, we got a litany of issues that probably should take precedent before the school zone become a potential cash grab for the region. And that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Deneau. Councillor Singh, you're up next.
Yeah, I think I agree with the overall sentiment of what Councillor Deneau has just said. That's not to say, and I know full well, that he absolutely values the safety of our youth and ensuring that spaces leading to and near our schools are safe from collisions. And the ACE cameras or AC mechanism is one extra way for us to ensure that people are more mindful. And if they're not, they may pay the price for it. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't think anyone around this horseshoe generally has any concern with it. We were all quite ecstatic the fact that this was one extra tool available to us. And for many years past, as we talked about road safety, looking at speed bumps just made no sense because a lot of people were against it, while the other half were supportive of it. And it divided the community. This way, it doesn't jeopardize response of our fire department or ambulance to the necessary neighborhoods with having speed bumps, but more importantly, ensuring that good behavior, good motorist behavior is enforced upon. But I still want to thank Councillor Ioannidis for bringing this motion. It's indicative and reflective of not being heard. From the beginning of this, I think this council showed collaboration with the region and being piloted in our streets and saying, yes, this is a good tool. But at the same time, knowing full well some of the challenges that were being faced, where we are the first intake of complaints and concerns, we were already hearing from our residents that it wasn't making sense when they were receiving tickets well past school time or on holidays. And so conversation was already leading well in advance up until finally the region decided to proceed forward with this, that we did not like the current mechanism. And then on top of it, we got dumped. Well, guess what? The fines are going to be in the hundreds of dollars or multiples of hundreds. And on top of it, we're not going to scale the time. That makes no sense. We had members of regional council in our gallery. We had a regional staff person where it's my feeling, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to project on anyone else, but it was my feeling that we didn't get heard that day. I think we gave the necessary feedback that for us to proceed forward, there needs to be a revenue sharing model. There needs to be more a dialogue around how the timing around the ACE cameras are, and on top of it, on where it works and where it works best and where it doesn't. But from what was brought to regional council and supported, it was not indicative, it was not reflective of any of that feedback. That is not collaboration, that is not good partnership. And if partnership is not the route, then we have to send a very clear message, this does not work for us. Make it work for us. If not, let's go somewhere else. Let's look at a different model. And I think the amendments and the motion do exactly that.
Thank you, Councillor Singh. Okay, got two others now who haven't spoken yet. Councillor Stretch.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to comment and perhaps ask a question of staff if they know the answer. And it's around caring for our most vulnerable, around pedestrians around school areas. Now, from what I understand, the price will be fixed for the tickets, right? We cannot adjust the price of the tickets that will come out with this system.
Through the mayor, yes, that's correct. The initial fine will be set. There is an option to have a conversation about the ticket and discuss the ticket with an approved professional at the regional staff level.
Thank you. And I guess a piece of that is concerning to me because I would really love to see some numbers and some statistics, and I have reached out to the police in different places but haven't received them yet around who is complaining and fighting the tickets, because for me, the price that is set is really high. And so if you're willing to go and, make a case for yourself, or have time to go and make a case for yourself, I just want to make sure that we're not, penalizing people who don't have those same resources of time or experience in speaking to some level of authority. So those details are really important. It's the same with the revenue sharing. Working out those details and how that's going to work for me are really important pieces before moving this forward. So I am looking at supporting the motion on the floor as well as the amendments.
Thank you. Next up, I have Councillor Chapman.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to say that to me, the ASC should not be contingent on revenue. It's about safety. And I like the idea that we're calling on the province to, maybe reduce the fines. I think that's really important. But I think that, the fact that we have these safety zones and that we have ASCs, it's for a reason. And I haven't seen the motion that you're thinking of bringing forward, Councillor Michaud, or the wording of it, but I would prefer to see that we continue with the ASCs, regardless of the fact that we're still in negotiations, which I think is a really good idea, but we don't know how long that might take. So it's, we can't just wait and hope that it happens before the cameras are installed or not. So I would be willing to see the whole program continue, and hopefully through the negotiations and through the conversations with the region, things can be, fixed or work in a way that benefits us. But still, first and foremost is safety. It's not about revenue, in my mind.
Okay, thank you. I have three folks who will speak a second time, and then I'll make my comments. Councillor Michaud.
Thank you. I'm disappointed that we're continue to go around this horseshoe and talk about money, talk about locations, talk about what intersection has the most accidents. Kids of school zones don't, so they don't need to have cameras. They don't need any more safety. It makes absolutely no sense to me. We've got a regional council who had taken the initiative to start this process of getting ASCs in other school zones. And we are holding this up because of some dollars and cents that we could probably negotiate, going forward. There is no reason in my mind that we should be stopping this process over how much money we're going to get or to some degree, I guess, what location they're going to be in. But I think it's sad that we're going down to dollars and cents for the safety of our community.
Councillor Davey.
Yes, thank you. I have a bit of a different take. I agree that it's about safety, and I also agree that it's not about the money, and I'm not interested in extracting more revenue from our residents based on this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to read a portion of the letter that I wrote to Regional Council last week in advance of their decision on this. The first question typically asked is, what is the problem we are trying to solve? I too have heard from my constituents over the years that speeding in their community is a top concern. I would submit, however, that speeding itself is not the problem we're looking to remedy, but safety, that is, the resulting fatalities and serious injury. This was indeed the first question I asked Regional Representative Mr. Spooner, and frankly was surprised to learn that Regional Council was not made aware of this most basic piece of data. That is, how many fatalities and serious injuries have actually occurred on the very school zones you're looking to enforce. Perhaps they have the data now. I actually haven't heard if they actually had the answer or not. But in its absence, it was a question that I asked our city transportation staff when we originally dealt with this many months back. and I'd share with them here. Would you be surprised to learn the answer within the city of Kitchener going back about 6 years now, all the available data they had is 0. 0 deaths, and this includes years when the speed limits were 50 kilometers, and they've since been reduced to 40 kilometers, and again reduced to 30 kilometers. The only argument I've heard when confronted with this data is, are you suggesting we wait around for someone to get hit then? Which respectfully, in my opinion, is specious. Governance with this argument means that we should also start spending millions on lightning rods because we're going to wait around for someone to get struck by lightning. You're a database decision maker or you are not. And the data clearly shows that school zones are already quite safe, especially compared to just about every other bit of roadway, as Councillor Deneau had pointed out. If the situation were more serious, I'd agree with going ahead with the flawed system, but it's not remotely dire and the consequences will harm people in our community. When I've door knocked, I found what people are really concerned about is loud mufflers and people racing up and down their street at excessive speeds of like 60 and 70. Certainly not traveling 40 or 50 and certainly not outside of school hours. I know some of us tend to think it's, rich folks in sports cars that will get these tickets, but you also hit single parents coming home from a long night shift who are driving safely, but perhaps their attention wanders from their speedometer momentarily and a ticket shows up with a doubled fine in their mail. Is this the kind of outcome you're comfortable with? Is this the kind of leader you want to be? I'm aware people can call in to plead their case, but let's be honest about who will do that. The most vulnerable equity-seeking individuals, will the most vulnerable equity-seeking individuals know how to navigate such a system? Just yesterday, at the time that I wrote the article, the Record ran a story suggesting 1 in 8 in our community are facing food insecurity. Couple that with a significant proposed tax increase, property tax increase by the region, and I respectfully submit that extracting $40+ million more from families through this proposal is actually cruel and will cause far more harm than good to the very people they represent. 0 deaths. What's the problem we're solving? We all want the same result, slower streets, but the situation is not nearly dire enough to justify use of a sledgehammer in place of fly swatter. Please pause the program and instead advocate for final control over the AMP system to ensure we change behavior compassionately, not punitively.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Davey. Councillor Ioannidis.
Thank you, Mayor Urbanovic, and thanks to all the comments that I've been hearing and thanks to the amendments and the additions. That's exactly where I really wanted to go. I just didn't know if I would have had the support. So I watered my motion down in hopes of, having this discussion and moving forward, and I'm extremely happy with where this is going. We all care about the safety of children and the public. To say otherwise is plainly misleading. What we have here is a difference in the approach. I do not believe in the approach of constantly penalizing residents. I do not believe in doubling fines at a time when many are living paycheck to paycheck. I do not see evidence showing that children are seriously hurt. I do not see the public being harmed at all hours of the day and night around these safety zones. From the correspondence that I have received within the ward I represent, the community is not sold on the program. In fact, the camera at West Heights Drive has been vandalized numerous times. I am dumbfounded by the approach that has been taken at the region. The lack of transparency is troubling, and the only reason we as a council had any discussion is because we had to raise it at the 11th hour, and thankfully we have a mayor that sits at that horseshoe and brought our concerns forward. Who do you think is going to receive all the public complaints? I'm pretty sure we all know who will. I'm pretty sure we all know the amount of complaints we receive that are in regional nature. I cannot understand how a program can be approved without knowing the full implications to Kitchener residents. Approving a program that has no signed agreement. So many of the questions are unanswered. I think we can all agree that speed cameras have a place in our community, but the public needs to buy into it and not view it as a cash grab. If the ideology is to have safe streets, then the program should be revenue neutral. Not collecting $21 million surplus when it's completely rolled out, or having every household roughly pay 3 tickets a year. That is a cash grab. Let's put it to you in another way that may make more sense. If If Kitchener represents nearly 40% of the region's population, and I know the numbers aren't perfect because there is a little nuances to it, but if you compare, sorry, I'm reading this wrong, $21 million would equate to $8 million plus coming from the Kitchener locations. If you compare that to our own tax levy, that represents a 5% plus increase. Let that sink in. There is no other way to finesse this, that this isn't a cash grab hiding behind the shield of children's safety when the evidence states otherwise. The rotation of the cameras and the increased speed limit to 40 kilometers is what I heard from the public would accept. The enforcement within school times is what I heard the public is willing to accept. If they're speeding and are getting a ticket, they're willing to accept paying, but not being draining their pockets and treating them like criminals. What I can say from firsthand experience, the cameras have already done their job in deterring speeding. Let's see the evidence otherwise. What has been proposed in the region, I cannot support, and I urge every member of council to support my motion plus the amendments to find a better solution for our community, to buy in and not be a cash grab.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's a lot of strong feelings around this table, around the horseshoe, excuse me. What I will say is that we all care about safety. That 100%. I know all of my council colleagues do. We might go about it a little bit differently, but at the end of the day, that's absolutely something that we care about. And I am in favor of ASEs. I do think that they do deter people and help them to slow down. My biggest concern with going forward without a plan in place to share the revenue. We have the biggest population. We're more apt to have the largest number of fines come from Kitchener residents, is that I want that money, that revenue, to go back to safety. I referenced when we last spoke about this, reports from our own transportation team who said that geometric road changes are really what's important in neighborhoods to slow people down, along with, you know, if you combine in an ASE, that is that much better. But as I was saying before, I have concerns about what putting an ASE might mean to different neighborhoods. And I would like to see us work on this agreement with the region, that there's a share of that revenue to go back to the communities so that they can use that money directly and only for road enhancements that will enhance safety in the neighborhoods. So that's truly what I am looking to do. I don't think of it as a cash grab. If you speed, you're gonna get a ticket. That piece, it is what it is, but I do want to see that money going back to make our roads safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Michaud, you spoke twice already. Was there something okay, I'll let you just, clarification, go ahead.
It's very quick. I'm very quick when I talk. Like, I'm 15 seconds, So there's a lot of emotion, well, it's true. There's a lot of emotion around this topic, and it's been heated, and we've gone through and around this circle, I can't count how many times. And it's been like that since day one. So all I'm asking for with Councillor Ioannidis' motion is that staff continue talking and meeting with the region without halting the process of these speed cameras. So I would put trust in our colleagues at the region that we can have a fair dialogue and come up with a fair solution that is equitable for the City of Kitchener and the region as well. So can I put that in a motion or like an amendment?
Well, as I said,
Yeah.
the original motion needs to fail, and if it
Okay.
does,
Oh.
then I'll come to yours. Okay? Counselor Ioannidis, do you really want to move on?
We can move on, but I think in essence, that's what, when we say, look at other things, I don't think that doesn't mean say absolutely no to the region. It's just saying, we're not, we want to look at all different aspects that may be better for us.
So to be clear, Counselor Ioannidis, the motion with the amendments as it's proposed right now adopts what you said, but also looks to not proceed at present on city streets with the ones that are currently operational or the ones that were indicated for addition in 2024. What Councillor Michaud is asking is that we do proceed, and if that fails, if your motion fails, then we'll consider her motion.
Okay, but what I see.
But all of the discussion with the region will go on, and then things will come back at that point in time.
Okay, I still think what Councillor Schneider put forward is still involves the region.
Yes,
Okay.
it does. I mean, what staff, okay, so we're talking about different components here.
Okay.
So there's the issue of deferring, or not deferring, but not proceeding with the ones on city streets right now, which is what your motion and the First Amendment cover off. Councillor Schneider's amendment speaks to the need that as staff continue to do those negotiations with the region, they also look at other alternatives that are available to us. One is for us to run it ourselves in-house. The other one is to contract with a third party that may, quite frankly, have a financial option or an operational option that is more appealing to us than either the regions or us doing it ourselves. And staff will report back on that.
Okay, but you also have Councillor Davies' addition that's not, you didn't mention that.
Yes, that's in there as well.
Okay.
Hold on. It's trying to update me. I hear these Windows 11 updates today are kind of a nightmare. I've heard rumors. Anyway, we stopped it. So, okay.
Okay.
So, thank you, Councillor Hernandez. So I'll just speak for a moment then before we deal with this. So I want to thank Council for all of their input and dialogue on this issue. As noted, it is one that certainly has a range of viewpoints, but I think there is unequivocally one thing that has been clear, I think, from this Council as a whole, and that's our unequivocal commitment to the safety of our children being absolutely key, and the commitment of this Council towards Vision Zero. I think there's been also a recognition that has been articulated both by this council when we had regional delegations here, and certainly by myself at the region and so on, is that the way this is rolling out at the region is not consistent with the understanding that we as a city had when this dialogue started. And one of the key and fundamental pieces was when the trials were started, was that the discussion between staffs as has been articulated here in this council chamber, was that there would be conversation around some kind of agreement being put in place. And that has not happened up until this point. And it's only as a result of the pushing that has even bubbled back up, to be quite frank. And that's disappointing for me as Mayor of Kitchener, and disappointing for me as a member of Regional Council. I think the other thing that we have learned and heard from our staff is that, and always knew, is that while ASC is an important tool and one we want to be able to use in certain circumstances, it's one of numerous tools in the toolbox that need to be available to us. And it's also recognized that various physical design tools, technical enhancements, I know there's some fancy words that Mr. Cronkite uses around that stuff, but ultimately we know that those are actually more effective, quite frankly, than speed enforcement. And we can't lose sight of the fact that while ASC ASC is an option to assist us at times, we also want to be able to rely on Waterloo Regional Police Service to also do targeted enforcement as part of their ongoing responsibilities as well. And while there are a broad range of challenges that they need to look after, there's also value that comes when you do have targeted speed enforcement, because in those times you also find people who are driving under the influence either from alcohol or narcotics, or sometimes encounter stolen vehicles and other things, which quite frankly ASC doesn't. And so I think that's something that we shouldn't lose sight of. I think there are a number of options that the region could have looked at from an operational point of view, including, if there was a desire to not ramp up so quickly with up to 170 cameras, they could have continued with a court system that would have limited the number of cameras, but not seen a doubling of the fines, for example, that comes through this process, and manage the numbers through that until it could be looked at differently. I think the approach that we're taking that's proposed here between the motion and the amendments is one that I'm comfortable to support. I think everyone here is aware that the region did vote to proceed. There was 2 of us that opposed it, myself and Councillor Wolf. At Regional Council for some of the regions that I've outlined, but also the concerns about what the impact of this would be. And one of the things that we can't also lose sight of is, yes, I agree with Councillor Chapman. This isn't about money, but the reality is, if there are revenues that are going to come, and we know that in fact physical design accommodations are the best way to address that, the revenues that come from that will actually allow us to invest more in those physical design changes quicker. And so where that happens in Kitchener, quite frankly, I want to see those dollars come back to Kitchener and not necessarily being invested in other parts of the region. So that's where I think it makes sense for us to have these issues resolved, and certainly our leverage is stronger, as Councillor Johnson has pointed out, if we do that now, as opposed to simply moving forward with the way things were. So those are my comments, and if I can ask the clerk to put all of the motions back on the screen, rather. Sorry? Okay, so hang on. Councillor Davey, you wanted to clarify something on yours?
Yes. So staff integrated my amendments, which is fine, but they actually need to remove the word on the first part that's highlighted in yellow, pause current and future. They need to remove the word additional just because it's contradictory to the previous part. That's all. Minor thing. Excellent. Thank you.
I don't think so, but I may be incorrect. Okay, so I will, Councillor, okay, you have a question? Go ahead, Councillor Stretch. And then Mr. Chapman, you have a question? Okay, go ahead, Councillor Stretch.
Question of staff, the word pause. So I just want to define, because I've heard we've used the word put on hold or roll back. So just wanted to define the word pause. So pausing means we don't proceed, but when we do start to proceed, we carry on with the plan that is currently there? Or does the pause mean pause to reconsider a new plan, which might include the old plan, but open to new plan?
Mr. Chapman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So I'll clarify my understanding, and then perhaps Councillor Davey or the mover can confirm if that's correct. Council had originally endorsed 2 locations in Kitchener. Those have been installed. Council endorsed 3 additional locations which are pending for installation, and we have until the end of the month to confirm if we are in or out for the current program. My understanding of the motion as worded would basically pause all ASE on the 2 that have been implemented and the 3 that are contemplated until the rest of the motion is addressed. So we will go away to continue negotiating an MOU with the region. We will look at alternative models for delivering the service, and we will report back to council before any decision is made about reinstating those locations or expanding them. I would suggest that there's been no debate about the previous decisions around the appropriateness of those locations, so it stands to reason that council could revisit that. But what I understand the key issue in front of you today is the terms and conditions of the program itself. And so all ASC will be paused in Kitchener until those issues are addressed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. I don't see anybody else in the queue. So with Councillor Davies' amendment being the second one, I'll deal with that one first. Sorry, and I just want to check. So actually, as I look at the wording in that paragraph, in light of the other amendment from Councillor Schneider, it actually creates a little bit of a challenge because it says, until such time as Kitchener Council has approved a memorandum of understanding with the region of Waterloo that outlines revenue sharing and the ability to, but then we go and say in the next paragraph to go and actually look at other options. I think what we're really wanting to do there is until such time as Kitchener Council has approved a memorandum of understanding with the region of Waterloo or other operational implementations. So is that part of your amendment, Councillor Davey? Or that's good. No, this is your. No, okay, that'll be Councillor Schneider. So that's fine. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Okay, so right now we're dealing with pause current and future installations of ASCs. That's the amendment that we're dealing with right now. Everyone clear on that? And a recorded vote has been requested.
On everything, right? The first one, or never?
We're just dealing with the first amendment right now. So plus is yes, 0 is conflict, negative is no. And that carries. Okay, next up, we will deal with Councillor Schneider's amendment. But Councillor Schneider, then your amendment will have to just add that extra wording that I referenced in the paragraph above, so the clerk can capture that. So that was the wording, until such time as Kitchener Council has approved a memorandum of understanding with the region of Waterloo and something along the lines of, or other operational model, to allow for what's being talked about in the amendment that, yep. Okay, so everyone clear? So what we're voting on right now is that therefore be it resolved that staff be directed to investigate and report back on the city or other model. So recorded vote has been called. And that's carried unanimously. And now we'll go to the motion as amended. And a recorded vote. And that is carried. Okay, thank you, colleagues. We'll now move on to the in-camera authorization, moved by Councillor Stretch, seconded by Councillor Deneau. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And a motion to recess, Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Schneider. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried.